Welcome to CVU Circle. This is our recap podcast where we review our favorite TV shows and movies of the past, present, and possibly the future, all in service to our end goal of determining just how highbrow or lowbrow our viewing taste is. And along the way, we muse about vintage fashions and styles and filming locations. Doug's coming now, often lost to the decades. Hi.
Hi. A little something to wet your whistle.
Oh my gosh, what are these?
Well, these are my famous Misty chocolatini.
Double chocolatini.
Double chocolatinis.
Oh, well.
A la Misty.
I mean, don't you think you could have gotten some chocolate shavings on these?
Oh, I could. Well, actually, I left them outside. Let me go get them.
Okay. Oh.
These are fresh shaven.
Okay.
Here you go. Look.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is proper.
I'm glad we have these special napkins that we lifted from the season 2 Yellowjackets premiere.
Ooh, this is tasty. Well, welcome to the new
Cheers.
episode. Hello.
We also want to invite you, actually. We're going to be doing a live stream chat with Sci-Fi Vision, a collaboration with them over on YouTube. That is Sunday night. That is the 6th of April. That is going to be airing live at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
We're going to be talking about the current episode of Yellowjackets, and we'll be in the live chat as well. We can discuss theories about the finale or any other ideas you may have.
Very exciting.
Where this show is going.
Very exciting. Now, we are going to get into our recap, our official recap of episode 9 in just a bit. But before we do that, we have a couple postcards from the Edge.
Ooh, I love postcards
This is
from the
fun.
Edge.
I'm just going to read them. You know, these are a couple comments that I thought were really kind of fun. These are over on our YouTube again. So much gratitude goes out to everybody over on YouTube for all those wonderful comments. There's been some really good discussions this past week. One I wanted to highlight was a message from Gabby Chavez. Gabby Chavez says, my only thing with the phone in the stall, this is the episode Dislocation number 302. We saw someone's shadow stand in front of Shauna's stall for an awkwardly long time. I do believe someone is stalking her, and she's not crazy. I don't think it's Melissa. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think now what's happening now that we're seeing more of the episodes in the series, I do have theories about who might be the stalker and also who might be the killer of Lottie. Like, things are changing.
Right. Things are changing. We've got some new information in this episode. But in that particular scene, I would agree that someone standing in front of a bathroom stall that long when there is an empty stall next to it. Because
unless it's a gay bar. Okay, let's go.
And then no one leaves the bathroom of a public place and turns off the light. So somebody was there leaving that for Shauna.
Yeah.
That can be established.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Another. Oh my God, did you hear that?
No.
I had a frog in my throat.
A frog? It's an Arctic
banshee frog.
Banshee frog.
Another nice little comment here was from Evie Crouch 6723, who said, what I think the most heartbreaking thing about the episode was, this is in regards to the last episode, was the fact that Natalie and Van are the most desperate to go home when they have such bad living situations back at home. Also, when Van immediately drops their bag as soon as Ty decides to stay, kills me. I mean, if you look at the episode again that we just watched last night, it's this relationship between Van and Ty is so strong. They want to be together. So I think that makes sense that Van did drop their bag right then and there. And then obviously she has more to say to Ty in this episode. But yeah, I mean, I think Natalie's passion for going home is very evident, and it's very heartbreaking later on in this scene as well. So thank you again for leaving these wonderful comments, and we encourage you to continue doing so in future episodes, including this one.
Please, please, please.
Yes, you may subscribe, of course, by ringing that little bell on YouTube.
And did you like it yet? Because that's a really easy thing to do. That really helps us.
It's free, and it helps grow our channel.
It's the algorithm
The algorithms, the mysterious algorithms. Also, you can message us, right? You can message us over on Blue Sky or on TikTok. A lot of people are messaging us on TikTok, which is great. And of course, we are also available via Gmail. That is seeviewcircle@gmail.com, SEEVIEW circle@gmail.com.
So today's discussion is Yellowjackets Season 3, Episode 9, entitled How the Story Ends. The writers are Sarah L. Thompson and Ben Seminoff.
Whew.
That's a lot. That's a mouthful.
And so was this episode.
This
Once
episode
again,
was
7 pages of notes. Let's get right to it.
Totally.
Thank Walter for these double chocolate espresso martinis. We're going to start this episode right where we left off with the teens in 1997. There's this big moment. It's the unmerge, right? So you have Shauna, and you have Ty, and you have Lottie, and they are all wanting to stay, and the rest of the people are freaking out. Akila even says, what is even happening here? And I think Lottie says something like, it's what it wants. Meaning them to stay, right? And Travis is pissed off.
Yeah.
Now, they're all squabbling, and then you have Kodiak over there who's just like, well, you know what? I'm just going to let you all braid your hair and just dabble in your little...
That was a great line. You're dabbling in light cannibalism.
Light cannibalism.
I like
and
that.
he's going to take off with Hannah, but then Shauna says, oh, hails, no, you are not. She points the gun at him. Kodiak definitely has like what we will call big energy.
Yes.
BDE in this moment.
BDE, he doesn't care whether
Shauna is matching him pretty well because he taunts her and says, oh, you don't know how to use that gun.
She said, my boyfriend taught me, which I thought, like, Jeff taught you how to use that gun?
No, I think she was like saying as a joke to him, like, you know, oh, I had to rely on my boyfriend to learn how to use the gun, right? That was the kind of a throw.
Well, then she becomes the queen, as she does, and she says, take their shoes away from them and then lock them up in the animal pen, which was really
It's
extreme.
a human pets again, right? As they start corralling Hannah and Kodiak, then we have a little moment between Ty and Van. And remember, Van is pissed off. Like we just mentioned in the postcards from the Edge, she wants to go home so bad. So she's questioning why Ty wants to stay. She says, Ty, because Ty had said, oh, you know, we don't have to stay forever. Ty's concerned that they need to like tie up...
Get that bank
That
out.
kind of is a cuspect moment, but I don't have a coin.
We don't have any coins.
Ty is concerned that they have a lot of loose ends that they need to clean up, right? There's kind of a crime scene with that Edwin dude, right? There's a lot going on here. So she sees the value in staying to get some of that stuff taken care of. She says, what's the point of going home if it ruins our lives?
Right. And I think her argument is that maybe they shouldn't do a knee-jerk reaction to going home right this moment, but there might be another moment where they could go home and have those things tied up in a nice little knot.
Right.
Know?
But Van's upset because she says, we're not as prepared for winter as you seem to think we are. And Ty says, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. But Van says, no, don't you remember last winter? We ate a kid.
Yeah, that was really extreme and a reminder of how rough this story really is.
Right, because Van even says, you know, to us, we've kind of forgotten how bad the things we've already done. But to the outsiders who saw Coach Ben's head at the end of a table, it's going to look just as bad to all the other people that are going to come to rescue them. And she is not wrong in that moment. Now, this is the wild part, is that Ty says to Van, oh, just keep practicing with your cards.
Right.
Remember that?
Yes, I remember that. I was going like, oh,
What
here we
does
go
that
again.
mean?
Well, we're back to the old cannibalism again, I guess.
Oh my gosh.
Playing with the queen of
But
hearts.
Ty is definitely saying, like, I got your back, don't worry. So she's protecting Van already here in this moment, whether that's Ty or other Ty, we shall see. Moving over to the adult timeline, we are back in the hospital and we are seeing Lauren Ambrose as Van. She wasn't in the last episode, actually. But here we have her being visited in the hospital bed by the younger version of herself. So,
which was immediately, for me, like red flag. I'm going, oh boy.
Yes, because the last time we saw these two together, it was a very intense scene where the young Van lights the hospital bed blanket on fire, right? So in this moment, though, she's talking about the Goonies.
Right. The writers of this television show were very much influenced by 80s movies, and the Goonies is probably one of the closest storylines, I think.
Right, and they've already referenced this season when they were in the cave in episode 3, I think, and the whole group was together. In this moment, though, the reference is very explicit because young Van tells older Van, reminds her that Goonies never say die. So it's kind of like a pep talk in a way to the dying Van in the bed. And Van says, oh, yeah, I've seen that movie like 100 times more than you have, referencing that she's the adult now who owns While You Were Streaming. And it's probably
she's probably been watching that every day in the video store.
But they still need this kind of refresher course, maybe for the audience, right? Which is that this Goonies movie is a hero's journey about finding a treasure. And there's this moment where the guy, I can't remember his name right now, and somebody in the comments, feel free to leave that right now, who it is, says, like, this is our time now here. And I think you could read that kind of a couple ways, because you could see it as this is their time in the wilderness, right? And as soon as they go out of the cave or out of the wilderness, they are back to a normal, boring life. So this is the time to take advantage of whatever this excitement or adventure is. But also what's happening here is that the young Van is telling adult Van that other Ty, or whoever this Ty is onto something, actually. She is goading her to actually kill someone, to listen to other Ty. Because Van says, she hasn't really been herself lately. And then young Van says, all the more reason to listen to her. And it's at that moment that Van like unhooks all of her stuff, and she's like, okay.
Yeah, she's like, I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. But it was interesting because they mentioned that there is a treasure, right, in Goonies, and it's X marks the spot.
Right.
And so we are going to see that very shortly come into play. Van just absolutely looks terrible in this moment. And I think the young Van even is putting something into her IV bag. And she's like, what's that? She goes, oh, it's just a little something for the road. And she says something like, death is around every corner. But from the Goonies movie, again, Goonies never say die. Yellowjackets never say die.
What was the line about I don't like taffy? I wrote it down.
Okay, so the taffy, I'm really curious, and actually I want to ask you about it, because isn't saltwater taffy like a very typical Jersey thing? Like, it's like Jersey
totally.
Shore. So
Jersey Shore.
I think that's what it's in reference to. And if you remember, when the Sudeikis go to the Jolly Hitcher for their staycation, they get a whole bunch of saltwater taffy on the bed. So I think it's kind of like meant to be like a comfort thing for people from Jersey. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm so young when I left there. I don't remember, but yeah, I remember going to the shore.
The shore,
and going to get saltwater taffy.
I know. I remember we had taffy.
We get it at the Seaside Heights.
We went to O Fudge and got taffy.
Yeah, but I mean, I would go when I was little. We would go to Seaside Heights. So it is a thing that goes along with Seaside.
Right.
Childhood.
Long Beach Island.
Fun. Yeah, all that fun stuff. Oh, fudge. So the next scene takes us back to that gripping moment now with Shauna and Melissa.
Melkel is somebody on our YouTube referenced them as.
Shauna and Hat are together. And obviously the last episode was ending on this note where Shauna is telling Mel to eat the skin that she has like bitten off of her arm.
If she doesn't eat it, then she's going to tell the family about all the secrets.
Yeah, it's really disgusting.
So she eats it.
She eats it. She chews it, but then she spits it right back at Shauna, and then she gets up and she runs. She grabs the car keys.
It doesn't Shauna throws like, I don't know, something against the wall.
Yeah, there's something like food, jam or something goes against the wall. So of course it's that classic like chase.
Yeah.
And
but Melissa gets into the car and out of gas soon.
She was warned about that before by her wife, if you recall.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a reference to it later, which we'll talk about. So we all know that this is going to be a limited driving experience.
A limited chase. Following along in the storyline, now we have Misty, Van, and Ty, and they're all together in the car. They're going to track down Shauna because they know she's en route to Hannah's daughter's house, Alex. They don't know about Melissa yet, but they soon will. Because in no possible universe that exists outside of television They are driving on the same stretch of road where Melissa's car has run out of gas.
And then I think, was it Misty who said, or who's the person who said, oh, they look like they're having a worse day than we are?
Yeah, Van says,
Van
says, I can't believe there's somebody there who's having a worse day than me. Here she is with her oxygen, her portable oxygen that she's using to kind of get through the day. Misty sees the person and says, oh my gosh, that's Melissa. Now, how could she recognize Melissa after all this time?
I mean, it's a little unrealistic, but, this is
she
television.
wasn't wearing her hat backwards, was she?
I don't even know if she was wearing the hat, to be quite honest, but
So they stop. This is a very, very fun moment here because it's like they're on a chase from the car, and they're running after her, and they're like, get her, get her. Misty has a crowbar with her, right?
Yeah, she's threatening her with a crowbar.
She's getting away. Meanwhile, Van can't run, right? So she is in the car with her oxygen tank. She turns to the left or whatever, and she sees out of the driver's side window, there is a railroad crossing. It is the X. X marks the spot from the Goonies vision she just had with younger Van in the hospital. This must be the connection to whatever this treasure that young Van wants her to find. This is the connecting moment.
I have a question for you, because when I saw that at first, I started getting very worried that she was going to take the car and just sit on the railroad tracks. That was kind of what came into my brain.
That's not what the vision is. The vision was telling her to actually kill somebody. So to me, Melissa is the X.
Right.
Kill Melissa.
Kill Melissa.
And it follows through in the car because once she gets in, I love it. Van turns around and she's like, so how you been, Melissa?
Oh, yeah. That was like super comedic.
Yeah, really funny. Little comedic moment in a very tense situation. Melissa reveals that, yes, she is the one that sent the tape, and they're all freaked out. And so it's just kind of this like unhinged moment. And Van basically just says, shut up or you really will be dead.
Right. That was kind of scary. Seeing her being so threatening.
Yes.
I was like, okay.
Yes.
Badass.
Yeah. Moving back to the team timeline, this is a scene, isn't it?
This was a real surprise.
Yes, it was. Now, of course, if you watched the preview for this episode, you did see a reverse shot of the pit with the spikes going up. And it was Travis who was overseeing that. So what we find out is that Travis somehow in the last, hour.
He's been busy whittling, making spikes.
And
sticks.
sticking them in the bottom of the pit. And then also laying across this really intricate lattice work of smaller sticks that he can then cover with brush. Because it is his idea that he is going to trap somebody in this pit. Now, what's interesting is that he is the one who drew that drawing on the piece of bark at the end of the trial saying, this is how it ends, or this is how it concludes. I can't remember exactly what the words were. And so I think it's interesting because we have on our theory list here that Travis's drawing is the reverse angle of the pit. And so while I'm not going to really cross that out as fully for sure we know that's what it is, it does seem even more likely it's the outcome. That's what he said. It's the outcome, right?
Right.
So if Travis drew it and dreamed it up, and here he is making the pit, it seems pretty likely that that's what that was. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Back at camp, we have Kodiak in the pen, and he is dissing Shauna, right? He does one of these like spitball things on the ground as she's walking by, and they have this like intense look at each other. And then as she's walking through the camp, she hears some whispers from the other Yellowjackets, and it's kind of showing the same kind of paranoia that adult Shauna seems to be, displaying this season as well. I thought
they're getting very aligned as far as the characters go.
Once again, we have all these connections. We have the Natalie, we have the Lottie, we now have this in the Shauna. It's pretty good. Now, what ends up happening is you can see that these people really are splitting off, and we're going to call them, and I have a list here in case you get confused. We have Team Crazy, which I think is what Mari calls them, right?
Yep.
Team Crazy is Lottie, Misty, Shauna, Ty, and Van. Van really by proxy because she's with Ty. And then we have Melissa, who really starts off as Team Crazy, but at the end of the episode, she defects over to Team Sane.
She jumps to Team Sane, which says a lot.
we have Team Crazy, and they're trying to figure out what it is that they're up to. What are they planning? So they decide to send Double O Quigley in to spy on them because they'd never suspect that Misty was actually really a part of Team Crazy. The people are making decisions because they always make fun of her. So that was a cute little moment, and it will definitely play into what happens for the rest of the episode.
I have a question for you about Misty Quigley. Is she forever a double agent? Who do you think she's more aligned with? Because we know she's borderline.
I think she's most aligned with Natalie.
Okay.
That's what I think ultimately.
Okay.
And this may be the episode where that really sinks.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. All right, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Moving back over to Melissa's house. This was funny because we try not to pause during the episode, but we just
we happen to pause on that face of Shauna cleaning up.
She's by herself, right? And she's like kind of cleaning up some of this mess that she's made after biting a piece of Melissa's arm. And of course,
this is meant for the viewer to think that the family's coming home any moment, and she is going to carve the shit out of it.
Right. I mean, because it's the driveway or the garage door that's opening, and she's like, oh my God.
I just kept thinking it was very like The Shining at that moment. You know, the look on her face with the knife. I was going, oh my God, here's Johnny.
Lost it.
Here's Shauna.
Here is Shauna for sure. Now, what happens is, I think it's Van who says, Shauna? So she lets their presence be known vocally first, so Shauna knows who's going to be walking in the door. It is Van and Ty and Misty, but they're also bringing Melissa back.
She's coming home.
They're all together now. These are all the remaining Yellowjacket survivors that we know of.
I still think there could be some others out there, but we'll talk about that.
I'm hoping. So it's really great because the first thing Shauna says, she got the blood on her face. She goes, I might have made things a little worse.
Oh, God.
And you can tell in her face that she really has lost it. Like you said, she is a psychopath. What Misty is trying to do is to reveal to the rest of the people that she believes it is Shauna who killed Lottie. Misty says, I found your DNA underneath Lottie's fingernails. And I also found that ticket from the Lincoln Tunnel, right? So that shows that Shauna was there location-wise and also this DNA match. But Shauna says, no, I was in Manhattan because
I was there at the Humane Society adopting the cat because she was trying to make Jeff feel better. If you remember, it was that whole karmic exchange.
And there, of course, Misty is like, you expect us to believe your tale of two cats?
Yeah. Now, this is very weird. It's very close to home this week, too.
It is, actually.
We had a little run-in with a cat that was dumped, and we were able to bring it to a rescue. So it resonated with me, as feeling good about...
Good karma.
Good karma of saving that cat, and it looks like the cat's getting adopted.
That's
so you know
fantastic.
what? That's good cat karma.
That is good
Two
cat
cats.
Karma. Misty also calls Shauna Martha Misdirect, which I think was funny because oftentimes on this show, the audience is misdirected time and time again, and it probably will happen a couple more times before the end of the season is over. So anyway, I think at this point, Misty is so pissed off at Shauna for basically lying to her face and doing all this stuff. She's like, I'm out of here. I'm done being your maid to clean this stuff up. Yeah. So she's out of there.
Yeah, but Misty did a reveal, right? Remember?
Oh, yes.
That was like the big reveal was that because Shauna was like, somebody's been chasing me and or whatever. Somebody's trying to kill me. Somebody locked me in the freezer. She said, I locked you in the freezer. I knew it didn't work or whatever.
Yeah, so, I was supposed to get that fixed a long time ago.
So that was kind of cute.
I thought you needed some time to cool off.
So that's one more of those things.
Remember that was that time when she had that like psychotic break, Misty, and she was going to stab her in the back, right?
Yeah,
so it's funny that that was what she actually did was just put her into the freezer.
Right. So now we know that the freezer was not done by somebody outside of the
right, and I
Yellowjackets.
think that the mechanic said that the brakes were not tampered with.
Right.
So really the only one that's still the outlier is the Queen of Hearts in the bathroom, which we discussed in our postcards from the Edge. And then, of course, this tape and letter, which has still not been addressed. After a break in this particular storyline, we're back, and Ty has tied up...
Ty has tied.
We don't have any coins today, but there would be one in there. Ty has tied up Melissa, and Shauna wants to know, is it tight? And Melissa answers, yes. And then Ty says, oh, this reminds me of that time with Adam, except there's no body.
No body yet.
Oh, right. Nobody yet. Ooh, foreshadowing.
Yeah. So here we are again. Now Melissa is privy to the fact that they have
done something.
Right. So Shauna then says, you just dug her grave. You know that. Oh, boy. It's getting dark here.
We
know it's
dark.
Nasty.
Yeah. And I think this is that time, though, where Shauna then tries to, put some shade onto Melissa and says, what kind of psychopath, brings back a tape and then marries the child of the person that she helped kill. So she's trying to, project onto Melissa that.
But she does have a point. They're all crazy.
She does.
They're all crazy.
And as we can see, Melissa is not as well adjusted as we thought she was in the last episode. And we will definitely get there. But in this moment, they sat her down in front of the chimney.
Now, I thought that was really a dumb move. Personally, you sit her next to the chimney, they would be smart enough to notice the fact that there is a chimney flue there.
Or a poker.
Yeah, or a hot poker. Yeah. Anything there could be possibly manipulated.
I agree.
But, of course, conveniently for the story, and again, I mean, I get it. It's a storyline.
It's a TV show.
But,
Let's remember, kids.
Right. It's a TV show. So
she closes the flue.
She closes the flue, and then, of course, that's going to be carbon monoxide.
It's a risky move on her part, I would say.
So we're back to the wilderness.
Yes.
But we're going to look at the Lottie and Travis interactions.
This is really interesting, as we like to say.
Yeah, so Travis, is speaking to Lottie and trying to convince her that he's actually feeling the energy. He says something like, there was a rush through my body, and it's like he felt the spirit or whatever.
He's like, will you go with me on a walk?
Will you go with me on a walk? So we really know where it's going.
So Travis leads her to this pit. Of course, she doesn't know that it's there, right?
Yeah.
And he starts saying, he just flat out says, you're the impediment to us going home. This is all bullshit. You're ruining everything.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I don't know what Lottie is exactly thinking. It's so hard to say. But in that moment, she says, oh, I was just trying to get you to connect with Javi. Javi is out here. Your brother is out here. That's what I was doing. It's not bullshit. At least to her, it wasn't.
Right. So she is obviously thinking that Javi's ghost is the spirit, possibly, with them.
And they mentioned it in the very first episode of the pagan ritual. They mentioned that these people are here or whatever. So she's kind of continuing on that same path. And of course, magically, there just happens to be rustling through the trees in that moment. So again, we were talking about last episode about whether or not this is supernatural or whether it is not supernatural. They've been leading us down this path that it is not supernatural.
I do think we're back to it being supernatural.
I feel that this is one of two instances in this episode where we have a supernatural moment here. Because why would the wind come rustling at exactly that moment? Well, I guess you could say it just is the wind. Somebody else on our YouTube, I can't remember who it was, said that, the weather pattern is the weather pattern. It just is what it is. But what a weird coincidence that would happen right then when Lottie needed it to appease whatever Travis was trying to say here about them eventually going home, right? It's all about the wilderness wanting them to stay, right? Isn't that what we keep talking about? That's what Natalie was saying in the plane when she heard some rustling in there. She's like, we're going home no matter whatever you are, right?
Yeah.
So there's that moment again. It's that supernatural element of the wilderness.
Right. I mean, and then obviously she is walking over the area of where she should have fallen in.
She's walking over the area where she should have fallen in,
right,
and she doesn't.
She's like Jesus walking on water, but she's walking on sticks.
Jesus walking on sticks.
Right, Jesus walking on sticks.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, she is a miracle worker in this moment, and I will say that Travis is getting something out of it in this moment. If you watch those scenes, they're beautifully shot, this particular sequence. He is feeling it, or at least he's having some sort of closure with his brother's death. And so in that way, you could say, well, Lottie's actually provided a service here. It's like a connection to that first episode where they're sitting there, the screaming trees and that whole thing with the mushrooms, and it spirals out of control with Aquila and all these hallucinations. But at least here, there is a nice little moment where there is some closure. But of course, again, that closure does keep them there longer because Lottie does not die here.
Nope.
So whatever she's up to for the next 5 months or 6 months they're out there, we're going to still have to deal with it.
We're going to see. We're going to find out.
She's part of Team Crazy until they get back and beyond.
And hey, the other thing, I think we did discuss this a little bit beforehand, but I think as the episode went on, we were definitely excited that things were drawing out a little bit slower because we were just worried that maybe they're going to try to wrap all this up.
Yeah.
Like, God forbid. You don't want the show to end forever.
Right.
And it felt like it was so fast-paced,
Yeah.
the last episode,
Right.
that possibly they could just go like
Yeah.
180 miles an hour
Right.
and try to wrap it all up. And we're like, so I feel good.
It feels good. It feels
and
good.
Feeling good, we're going to get at least another season and hopefully 2.
I think we're going to
like
get another
promised.
season. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
Now, getting back to, we kind of skipped over a couple scenes here. We also have Team Sane having a moment together. It's Jen and Akilah and Natalie and Mari. And they're all thinking, oh, gosh, we cannot spend another winter out here. And I think even Akilah says, if that is the case, I will be the first to sacrifice myself, which
I thought that was
I didn't want to hear, my dear.
Oh, no, I'm
didn't want to hear.
I'm feeling good that Akilah is going to be around.
You feeling good?
I feel like she's going to come back in the adult timeline.
I will say I did a little bit of sleuthing, a little bit of citizen detective work prior to watching this episode, and I got very upset because when I looked at the cast list between episode 9 and episode 10, there were 2 people missing from episode 10. One of them was Joel McHale.
All right, so we think
We'll get to that.
Right.
The other one was Nia Sondaya, who plays Akilah. So I was like, oh my gosh. Now, we can confirm that she is in the episode. We have seen it from the preview. We watched the preview. So she will be in it. So that was not a spoiler. Of course, somebody else did die this episode. We'll get to it. But in this moment, Akilah says, I will be the first to be sacrificed. And we will talk about this later because there is something else I want to mention. But here they are trying to figure out, what can we do here? Shauna's got that gun. Do you think we can?
Yeah, they're thinking about trying to steal the gun away from her, or I don't know.
They think, well, she's on a war path, but then they went, oh no, she's too chicken shit to actually use it. So they're trying to devise a plan about how they can kind of get the upper hand on Shauna and get the hell out of there. Now, of course, we also have Agent 00 Quigley, who is working for Team Crazy at this time. And so she kind of goes over there when they're having another meeting to kind of see, like, she's kind of playing around, right? She's like, oh, do you know what the plan is?
Yeah, that's right. She's trying to get, like, she's so, like, teenage on that level.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
okay.
And Mari can see right through it. Mari always has these great lines. She's actually the one that says, oh, Misty, we saw you talking to Team Crazy, right? So they know that they can't really, rely on anything that Misty's saying. However, there is a look in Jen's eye where she's like, I wonder if she was telling the truth. We watched a great interview with Vanessa Prasad, who plays Jen, on Sci-Fi Vision's channel that we're going to be doing the collaboration with this coming Sunday. And it's a great interview that does offer some insight into this relationship with her and Melissa, or she calls it Jen-Lissa. Jen-Lissa. And I think it's really fascinating. We do see this play out starting in this episode. We'll get to it in a moment. But before we do that, we have Misty following Van now. And Van goes to the wreckage of the plane, and she's sort of scavenging through
she's looking through like wires and stuff like that. And she's grabbing items.
Yeah,
I don't know, diodes.
I think she, good. I wouldn't know what they're called.
Yeah.
Then she finds the sat phone, right? This is the Frogger's sat phone. And she's like trying to.
She's looking at that piece that got broken, whatever that is. I don't know. Is that the antenna?
Transponder.
Yeah, it's got to be some kind of transmission.
Anybody who knows what that is, they could put it in the comments.
Yeah. I mean, it's old technology now at this point.
Right.
But whatever that was, she's eyeballing
So it was fascinating because here we do have, in a way, Misty spying on her own Team Crazy, because Van is part of Team Crazy. But maybe whatever Ty and Van are cooking up here, or Van maybe alone, is not privy to the rest of Team Crazy anyway. So maybe Misty's.
That's what I gathered from it. I think it's just Ty. I mean, Van's just trying to figure out any way of getting out of there.
She's desperate to get
home.
And
she's good with all those gizmos, and she could probably repair a video recorder.
She sure could.
We should send her that
Betamax.
one that we have that we need, that one, that DVD-R that, doesn't work.
Van, wherever you are,
come and fix it.
We just referenced Vanessa Prasad's interview with Sci-Fi Vision where she talks about Jen-Lissa. Here we have a little bit of that moment here with Melissa in the pen with Hannah. I don't know if she brought her back to the pen. I can't really remember the details of that, but they are starting to get close.
Yes.
Which is what the ladies in the road trip had said a couple episodes back. And in this moment, I believe it is Hannah who reveals that she has a 10-year-old daughter back at home who would be watching Nickelodeon. Oh, it's a reference because Melissa says, "Oh, I'd even get shot again just to watch another episode of The Real World."
Yeah, I thought
we referenced in the last episode.
We did reference that, and I kept thinking, you must love that because I know you watched it. I didn't watch
Well, I didn't watch all of it, but I certainly watched the first few seasons. And as a young lad, high school, college years, this was the perfect thing to watch. Anyway, so I can vibe with Melissa in that moment. And so afterwards, you can see that there's a connection there. And I think Hannah even says something like, wow, as crazy as all of this is the most fascinating study of survival I have ever seen.
Yeah. It probably is. I mean, it's got to be more interesting than a frog.
And I think exactly. And I think that's where we're starting to see Hannah entrenching herself in this village. They refer to the village. But at that moment, we have Shauna passing by and she says, am I interrupting anything?
Yeah, of course, she's super, you can see the jealousy, like she's seething.
So she snatches Melissa and they go back to the Shauna Hat Fun Hut and she is interrogating her like, what was that all about? And Melissa says, oh, Hannah just told me that she has a child back home and I feel really bad for her. And Shauna is just like, you believe her? She's manipulating you. I didn't know you were so stupid.
Yeah, and then Melissa leaves, and then Shauna follows her and then comes out with something to the effect of like,
nasty.
Nobody gave a shit about you until you were with me. And it was just really ugly remarks.
She says, yeah, you think you're important. And no one gave a shit about you until me. And then I think Melissa turns around and she says, why can't you just be a nice person? And then there's this moment where it kind of registers, but it doesn't break through because then she just says, you're nothing.
Yeah,
everybody around camp is seeing this.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, obviously we love Sophie Nélisse, right, as an actress, but like her character is just very unsympathetic, vicious at this moment.
Vicious is what I would say. And again, we are seeing this parallel to the older
that's a sign
Shauna
of a good actress too, because
she's
bringing that out, right?
For sure.
She's great.
And in this moment, I believe that Jenna Burgess also delivers a really nice moment of acting here as well. There's that intense look on her face, and she says to the crowd, "You guys see that she is fucking nuts." And then Shauna says, "You say that again." And she's got her gun out now, which is crazy. And everybody's saying, "Stop! Like, stop, Shauna! What are you doing?" And that's that moment Jenna Burgess, Melissa says, I dare you. She does it. She shoots.
Yeah, she shoots her, but she gets like, she just nicks the side of her denim, right?
Right, but it freaks Melissa out so much that she relieves herself.
Yes.
In front of everybody, which is very embarrassing. And then Van goes up to kind of cover her up. And the coldest part about the whole thing is then Shauna offers this like crazy smirk.
Yeah.
Because she's humiliated her in front of everybody. What?
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to end badly.
Well, it does end badly.
Well, it does. Yes, it sure does.
Team Sane is still working out their plan. So we have Mari. Oh, by the way, this is my closest impersonation of Mari I could. She had a lot to do this episode. So I know it's a little fluorescent, but it's my Mari moment. And Mari is leading Hannah on a pee break, and she brings her right to Natalie. And Natalie says, hey, she got this knife. And then Hannah's like, what's going on? And she says, I'm going to give this to you. And you are going to cut yourself and Cody free tonight. And we are going to leave all of us together.
Right.
Which is fantastic. So we're like, okay, we've got a plan. This is exciting.
But there are some eyes
It
watching.
appears there are some eyes watching. Probably Misty.
But we can't quite know at that point.
Somebody knows that there's something afoot.
Something is afoot, and it's not good. So now we're in the present. And I know we can all relate to how weird this scene must have been if you were doing this in real life.
Which scene, Doug?
Callie and Jeff.
Oh, Callie and Jeff. Okay.
Callie and Jeff. So Jeff interrupts Callie, and she's sitting there rolling up a joint.
Yeah.
She's trying to roll a joint. And so they have this
Doesn't
conversation.
he have some advice about the chronic?
Yes, he says, The buds are too big. Grind them up more. So it's like, yeah, that's, fatherly advice.
Fatherly advice.
Your daughter. Now, if only we had that kind of advice from our parents.
I know.
But, our parents were too straight-laced.
I was so square, though, as a child. I remember when I found out that my dad had smoked pot at some point, I was so offended. Of course, I was probably like 8. So, this is during like the 80s Say No to Drugs campaign. I was like, oh my God, and my dad did it.
Oh, well, see,
Meanwhile, there is an actual shot of and never mind.
I was smoking a joint.
Cut.
When I was at that age, when the Just Say No was happening, I was in another world where, hey,
it was just say yes.
Just say yes. We were saying yes, from 12 years old. So that's just the way it was.
All right, so later on, they're smoking out in Callie's bedroom, and they're listening to some Stone Temple Pilots.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought this was great. The song's called Creep, which wasn't my favorite Stone Temple Pilots song, to be honest. But in this situation, the lyrics kind of repeat over and over again. I'm half the man I used to be. And it's underlining this actually very tender moment between Callie and Jeff. I love it because Jeff just looks totally out of his mind high, but he's saying to Callie, oh, I didn't inhale. Now, of course, they're smoking out because they're celebrating the fact that the Joels have actually hired Jeff.
Yes.
Yay!
So it did work that Jeff spoke to the Joels
Yeah.
and was able to kind of emancipate himself from his wife.
Right.
And they must have respected him.
Yes, they did.
Because they hired him.
I love it. I love
Which
it.
is great.
I love it. And he says, oh, I'm going to take you out to this really expensive restaurant. And Callie's like, oh, no, we can't afford that. He's like, oh, no, we can be, some of the ladies who lunch.
Yeah, and then he did that weird thing with his leg.
What was that all about?
I don't know. It was a little weird. I was like going, all right, well, whatever. Maybe just trying to show that he's super stoned.
I guess.
Probably.
If any of you citizen detectives have an additional layer to that moment,
well,
please.
let's face it. This is probably the first time that Callie and Jeff have been together where, like, they both got stoned together.
Yeah.
So he's probably letting his hair down, literally.
Right.
Letting his wig down.
You had asked last episode, why was this still going on? I do think it is sort of like a nice little arc for Jeff this season. I do think that it is going to mean even more going into the finale. Whatever is going on with Callie or Jeff and the Lottie situation, we still do not know, but something is definitely going on here. But there's a great moment when Callie asks her father, did you mean that? Did you mean what you said in front of the Joels, that mom is crazy and all this stuff? And he breaks down.
Yeah. Didn't he say it was just very lonely being married to your mother?
Being married to your mother.
It's a lonely place.
Very lonely.
I just felt so bad for him. And, well, I don't want to talk about spoilers, but
something's up.
Something's
up at the Sadecki house.
Something's up at Sadecki residence.
While we're on the adult storyline, we have to go back to Misty. Got to follow up with whatever happened to her when she left Melissa's house. So this is great.
Yeah, so Misty is in a black vehicle, and it has a little Uber sticker on it. So she's getting out of the Uber, and she says to the Uber driver something like, oh, I'll make sure I check out your aquarium ornaments on Etsy. Bye. Like another one of those great Misty quips.
Yeah. Misty Quigley quips.
Quips. Yes, that was cute.
Misty Quipley.
But she's obviously arrived somewhere.
She's got a rendezvous point. Herein comes a helicopter, and right away we know this has got to be Walter Tattersall's, right?
Yes.
So he lands the helicopter in this dramatic moment, and Misty's hair is blowing. It's amazing. He comes out. He's like, what do you think? And she says, well, it's excessive. And then he says, oh, good. I didn't want you to think it was excessive, right? They can't hear each other. It's great.
And then he comes out with, Keith Morrison owes me a favor,
which
was like so up both of our alleys.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent a lot of time watching Dateline.
We do.
We do. Maybe not so much lately, but I have probably watched most of them.
Factoring in again to the fact last week, if you saw our episode, when he answered the question, who does he have a connection to? It is Misty because of this citizen detective moment.
I love all that stuff.
Do your Keith Morrison for me, or your Bill Hader as
no. Is it so and so? Did she murder him with the knife?
Yeah. See, watch Bill Hader do it.
Yeah, watch Bill Hader. Bill Hader does a great job.
Yeah. So then later on, we are back at Walter's beautiful home. We haven't seen it since season 2. It's gorgeous. It's the
I
same
love
place with
that
wall with
place.
all the windows, right?
My dream house.
Totally, totally. And oh, by the way, Wilson Phillips is playing in the background. Hold on. This is a callback to season 1, episode 2, when Misty is in her bedroom and she gets that prank phone call and she's listening to Wilson Phillips. So I love that. And he has, we're out of them here now, but he has the chocolate martinis a la Misty. Misty tells Walter that Shauna's story about the Humane Society checks out. She called. She was there. So I guess in this moment we can cross Shauna off the list, I guess.
I think we can.
Okay. So, and then we have Walter basically saying, listen, I know you don't want me to get involved with your relationship with your friends, the Yellowjackets, but he's like, from my point of view, I do think that your judgment is a little off here. And then she says, maybe you're right. But then she gives this look like she doesn't really believe what she just said. She's really just trying to stall.
She mentions to him, what about, now that they're on the same team now, investigating wise, she says, I know, can I see that cloned phone, Lottie's phone?
And he's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, of course.
So he goes off to get it.
But then Misty wants to look at it without him. And so she sends him on a hunt to get the chocolate shavings for the drink.
Yeah, to buy a little bit more time.
Right.
And so she opens up the phone, and then we're left with this scene of her seeing something that literally is jaw-dropping.
Jaw-dropping for Misty. Now, Walter comes back with the shavings or whatever, and Misty has left. So what did Misty see on Lottie's phone? I think for me in that moment, I thought, it's implicating Walter.
Right, but maybe not.
Well, I mean, I thought at first because we've been saying that Walter's got to be involved in some way, and there is this look on his face. But then he's not really like frantic. He doesn't chase after her. He just sips the martini. So whatever that is, she's seeing something that is so shocking that she needs to run off.
Right.
So what do you think it is?
Well, he did appear to be nervous before that. A little bit nervous.
But now, wouldn't he have already seen whatever was in the phone?
I mean, the only thing is this. Couldn't it be very possible that he has planted something for her to go investigate further?
Okay.
Like he knew that was going to happen.
So do you think maybe he's trying to turn Misty against her friends because he knows he can never be with Misty if her main connection is with the Yellowjackets?
Yeah, probably.
So he's wiped her phone, but maybe planted something on her phone or the clone to again continue this investigation on Misty's part.
Maybe. But then again, maybe she saw something so shocking that it was just
I was thinking maybe she saw that it was Callie that was involved.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Right.
You showed me that little preview of the next episode, the finale. It's out.
Spoiler alert if you haven't
seen it.
And
there's a little piece,
voiceover.
Yeah, it's a voiceover, but they're showing Lottie again with the candles.
Present day.
In present day, like towards,
In that, what we'll call the hotel basement ritual.
Yeah. Hotel
Stairway
basement
ritual.
And what did that voiceover say in there?
Said, something sent you here.
Yeah.
To me.
Something sent you there to me, which I kept thinking like, well, who would that be?
Right.
Probably Callie, because she's had that attachment. But we'll see.
Or
Lisa.
Yeah. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Or Lisa. Because Lisa was obviously in the earlier episode. Going back to the preview, though, you do see, again, spoiler, please don't listen if you don't. We see Shauna looking in Callie's closet and there are no clothes.
Right.
So that would lead you to believe that Callie has took off because she's afraid that somebody is going to maybe arrest her for something that maybe she did.
Or maybe it's just her and Dada have left the building. They've had enough.
Right, exactly. That's the other possibility that they've said.
See, that's what's so great about this show. Even if they're giving you a little teaser.
Well, I mean, that's the way it is even with the synopses, which we will talk about a little bit later on. They're always giving you these crazy curveballs. So we still are left not really knowing, but we could imagine, though, that Walter would be able to, Misty doesn't even know how to read the DNA results, apparently. So he could just be saying that anyway, that it's Shauna's DNA, and it could not even be Shauna's DNA at all.
Right.
In the preview, though, she does go to Shauna's house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she was wearing the same thing. I didn't piece that together. We watched it really quickly. But does she go right to Shauna's house after that?
Possibly.
Oh, so many questions.
Anyway,
so many questions.
let's not talk about what didn't happen yet.
We're getting stuck in the mud here.
Yeah, we got to keep moving on with the
recap. Back to the teen timeline. It is nighttime. Night has fallen on the village camp there. And we have Melissa going to speak to Jen. And again, this Jen-Lissa reconnection after the Shauna distraction most of the season. So Melissa is returning back to Jen and she says, Shauna, whatever's going on, I want in.
She's done with Team Crazy.
She's done with Team Crazy. We also see, I think, a shot of Misty finding Van's, the sat phone that she's working on, the Frogger sat phone. So we know that there's some connections again continuing there.
I was getting worried that maybe she was going to smash it.
I thought the same thing.
I was like, don't you dare.
You can see like the wheels spinning in Misty's head. And you never know which way they're actually going.
Yeah, you don't know.
All right, now we're into the animal-human pen, okay? And we have Hannah talking to Kodiak, and she has the knife. This is the time everybody's asleep now, so they're going to make a run for it. But before they do, Hannah asks some weird question to Kodiak, like...
Yeah, why did you have that backpack that said Eric?
Yeah, Eric Chang on it or something like that.
He came up with a really lame excuse, like, I got it
at a thrift store.
Yeah, bought it at a thrift store, and I was like, this is weird.
So that was really weird, and I'm just wondering if it put, like, some additional doubt. That was to show that there was an additional doubt in Hannah's mind.
Yeah.
As to why she's about to do what she does, right? So Shauna is in her fun hut, and she kind of overhears, and I think she turns. Does she think that Melissa's going to be there? Because there's this moment where she looks and there's nobody there. I'm like, Melissa's not going to be in your fun hut.
She's not in there anymore. Okay. No, she left.
So Shauna goes out to confront Hannah and Kodiak, and this is crazy. Shauna says, where did you get that knife? Right?
Yeah.
And then, in a surprising turn of events, Hannah takes the knife and she turns it on Kodiak, stabbing him in the eye.
Yeah, and I assume he's dead at this point.
Okay. We don't know yet because, remember, we don't know if someone's dead until we see the body.
Yeah.
Later on, it is referenced that Hannah stabbed him in the face. We still don't know that he's dead. However, I do know that he
stabbed him in the eye.
In the eye, right. And that is important because if we look back to Akila's dream from a couple episodes ago, there was the Kodiak bear with the third eye. The third eye is meant to be knowledge. That is knowledge. He has the knowledge how to get home, and she has stabbed him in the eye, showing that I guess probably he is dead. They've killed the knowledge of how to get home now. That's what that's representing.
Right. Then I think for me, what I saw immediately was that Hannah has become full on captive, brainwashed person, like very much like Patty Hearst moment.
Absolutely.
She's
says,
become
I
Tanya.
want to be a part of this.
Right. She wants to be a part of it now. And
you could see there was a look in her eyes that she was very mesmerized by this, what she just did, that kill.
Yeah, remember, she found it fascinating, the whole situation. So she's on board now. And I mean, I guess I'm sure there's a bit of the element where she needs to save herself at any cost.
Absolutely.
So she's going to be on board.
We saw that kind of in the last episode, too. I think there was a moment where like, okay, she's playing some games. She wants to get home. Now, in the background, I think you see maybe Misty, Jen, and Melissa, and they're kind of watching what's happening, and they are stunned and obviously disappointed that Hannah has done this, because every time someone kind of thwarts a plan here, it means they're going to be stuck here at least another day or whatever, right? Jen and Melissa run to go find the others who are, I guess, ready to leave, right? This is Mari, Akila, and Natalie. And they're like, what's going on? Where is everybody? And so Melissa tells them what happened, that Hannah stabbed the guy in the face and that Shauna knows about everything. And then it's this very dramatic moment where it like focuses in on Natalie.
It was very weird too, because at that moment as well, the other people fade away and it's just Natalie on her own.
And her face just contorts into this complete sadness.
It starts snowing.
It starts snowing in that moment.
I was just like, boy, you guys are screwed.
It just shows that absolute despair that they are going to be stuck here for another winter. And she remembers all the things that happened last winter with Javi. She remembers the card draw. She remembers all that stuff spiraling into Coach Ben and the fire and him leaving. All these events happened because of the winter. There's something that you were wanting to discuss about the winter, isn't it?
Well, I don't know where I read about it, but it might have been again maybe on the Blood Hive.
Okay.
Yellowjackets
shout out.
Blood Hive. Shout out to Autumn and JC. Okay. This is about the Algonquin tribe, Wendigo, which is a creature.
Yeah.
I assume a spirit that
a nature spirit,
wilderness spirit that appears in the winter, and it's cannibalistic in nature, and it seeks flesh. It needs human flesh.
It's like never satisfied,
insatiable.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what we're kind of been seeing with the sacrifices with the other Thai, and also everything that Lottie's always been saying about it needing this for that. It's tying into this Wendigo, which I'm assuming is something that carries into Canada as well, First Nations people up there as well, this kind of concept of this hunger in the winter. And so I think that's what Natalie is feeling in that moment. Like, we have to go back to this. It's a really wonderful moment for Sophie Thatcher. She's sobbing, breaking down, and it's just... you just feel terrible for her and for all of them.
But I mean, it was so well done, the cinematography at that point. And then what was really weird is you saw this little light. And at first I was thinking, like, it's a ghost. It's Javi's ghost.
I thought it was Javi's friend.
Or Javi's friend.
Yeah.
But we do find out pretty quickly that it's Misty. We see the curly hair. We're like, okay. She's on the move.
Gosh.
Misty's on the move.
And this is a moment.
Yeah, this is a great moment.
This is a huge moment.
So she's at the trunk of the tree where she had, in the past, hidden the transponder. And she is fiddling around. And Natalie, of course, goes over to see, like, what the heck's going on.
Because she's comparing this device that is in the transponder to whatever is needed for the sat phone.
You know what that thing looked like to me? It looks like one of those. Do you remember those curlers that, like, your mom would have with the foam on the outside and they would curl? Like, whatever. The
I do know what you're talking about.
But that's what it looks like, but it's straight. But that's like, it looks like one of those curlers.
I do think you're right. It's probably more like a diode.
Yeah, it's a diode, but that's what it looked like to me. And
so in that moment, you have Natalie come over and said, you have the transponder?
She does not look very happy at that moment.
She is furious. Now, to me, though, this is a really interesting moment. We kind of referenced it earlier. You're saying, whose side really is Misty on? And to me, this is the moment where it is Misty and Natalie. This is the bond here, because we don't know what happens yet. We can't totally verify this, but we can imagine that in that moment, Natalie's going to say, how did you know this was here? Right. Misty's going to have to answer to the fact that she buried it there.
Right. We've talked about this in the past of Yellowjackets in the season, where they always reference that Natalie was the one that helped get us rescued. She helped rescue us. So if this is the device that gets them home, then maybe the deal is going to be that she made the deal with Natalie to not say anything about.
You can take credit for this, because this is the other issue, that the other reason why we failed to mention that Natalie was so despondent in that moment when it starts snowing. It's not just the winter. It's the fact that as the former Antler Queen, she has taken Team Sane and tried to concoct a scheme to get out of the wilderness against Shauna. And she knows they're all going to have to go back to camp and answer to that.
Right.
So here we have this perfect opportunity to use Misty's original deception and turn it into Natalie's opportunity to come back with their way to communicate back home.
Right.
And that, in a way, gets Misty off the hook of this huge, big, bad moment that we've been discussing since episode 2 of
We've been waiting for this to come back and get her, like, rear its ugly head.
Great continuity here with this storyline weaving through the seasons. Love it. Love it. The shocks just keep on coming on this episode, don't they? We go back to Melissa's house, and we have Van returning from the car. She had stepped out to get some oxygen. When she comes back,
and then you hear the beeping of the carbon monoxide alarms going on, and everybody's
like, Melissa's like crawling on the floor, and Ty's passed out. So she runs over to the chimney and she opens up the flue. Now this is really interesting, because here we go again, the symbolism
the fire
with Van.
Yep.
Will the fire get her? Well, kinda. So what happens is Van is desperate to get Ty out to the fresh air, and she has the oxygen, which is perfect. So she puts the oxygen onto Ty's face, and then it swaps over to one of these like weird passing dreams, and suddenly it's Ty in the cave back in the wilderness. But what's really weird is that there's a phone there, and it rings, and it's one of these weird see-through phones again, just
but it's
like
like
the one.
But it's like the proper.
Yeah.
I don't know where our phone is. The little orange phone.
Yeah,
up there.
it's like a proper
It's
headset.
a real old school.
And what's
phone.
crazy is that here is the other moment of complete supernatural in this episode. Okay, we cannot deny that in that other scene that the phone rang for no reason, and on the phone was Ty screaming, "Please help me, I can't," whatever. Here we now have the phone calling Ty, and it's Van saying, "Please breathe, please breathe."
Right.
But it's other Ty who picks up the phone, and she's like, "Oh no, don't listen. You're not." And she says, "You can't help her," meaning to other Ty says, "You can't help Van. I can." And then Ty pushes other Ty down, and she wakes up and she's breathing. So it's really great because Van has basically saved her life and saved Ty, pushing Ty over other Ty. Finally, maybe once and for all.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
All right, back inside. Then Van goes to grab Shauna and takes her outside as well. And who is left but Melissa? And Melissa, again, this was kind of a gamble to do that whole carbon monoxide thing. You think she would just leave after she saw them kind of passing out, but whatever. Anyway, so
she was tied up still.
Yeah, that's right. So then we have Van with a knife, and she's standing over Melissa, and you can see in her face she's thinking, "Oh, here's my opportunity. X marks the spot. Let's kill Melissa, and maybe I will actually be spared." Right? So you think she's going to do it? I really thought she was going to do it. There was a look on her face. I really thought.
Well, she was ready to do it.
She was ready to do it. She was ready to do it.
She was going there.
We cut to the next scene, and then you have Melissa trying to convince her that this is not who you are. She says, there's always been some good in you.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful moment. Lauren Ambrose says, you don't know me anymore. She reveals that she has cancer, and like there's, it's a whole new...
And this could save her.
Yeah, exactly.
And all that.
Right,
jazz.
right. She's struggling. She wants to do it. She wants to do it, and then she just can't. She goes, "Why can't I be that?" And Melissa says, "You don't want to be." Van says, "No, I don't." And then there's this like camera movement. You see that Melissa grabs the knife from Van's hand, and she says, "But I do,"
which was really frightening.
And she stabs her.
Yeah.
She stabs Van right there. And we can talk a lot about the Melissa's aspect, but what ends up happening is it transitions right over into, again, this like plane dream, similar to what Natalie had at the end of season 2. And it kind of goes back.
I think we know now, whenever we see the airplane, when they're on the airplane, then they're on the way out. So we know that now.
I watched the clip of Natalie on the plane just for reference, and it's very turbulent. And on this one, though, it's very smooth, the plane ride. I'm wondering if there's a reason for that. I did think it was very clever that they had Van watching an in-flight movie, right?
And did you notice it was like the old school video one, too, with the 3 colors?
The tricolors. Again, this is a tie-in to Van and her video VHS While You're Streaming Shop and her love of movies. Great moment there. And she turns to the side, and there is the younger version of herself. They're sort of continuing this conversation that began back in the hospital at the very beginning.
It was actually really sweet in a way. I love seeing Liv Hewson and Lauren Ambrose together.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We met Liv Hewson last week at the premiere that we DJ'd for Mid-Century Modern, and we were talking to Liv about, I said, you've always been a fan favorite of ours since season 1. And I said, when I found out that Lauren Ambrose was going to be playing you as an adult, that was so special to us because we were such huge 6 Feet Under fans. So then to see them together in these scenes was just really special. Adult Van says, what? I'm dead?
Yeah, she doesn't know she's dead.
She's like, I can't believe this. I'm seeing myself die? What is this? Young Van says, this is just how our story goes. But then Van says, no, you said I was going to be the hero. I was going to find the treasure. Young Van says, you are the hero. You saved the love of our life, right? Ty, that's the treasure. But then Van's like, but now I'm dead. Young Van says, surviving this was never meant to be the reward, right? And then Adult Van says, well, if this isn't the ending, then tell me what happens.
Well, Young Van then says, where would be the fun in that? Which was very poignant.
but also cryptic, I think.
Yeah, a little cryptic. We talked about this a little bit this morning, but what if there's another scenario where maybe Van doesn't die?
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Or she's saved.
That's why when I was seeing that the plane ride was not bumpy, it was nice and smooth.
Yeah.
And there's that moment where she says, oh, well, it's kind of not over yet. And then she leaves. I was thinking,
Well, then I was thinking that maybe...
because Melissa's on the loose still.
Well, Melissa's on the loose. We still have Ty, and we still have Shauna there.
Right.
And maybe these family are going to come home any second.
Right.
We don't know.
So in other words, could there be another sacrifice that ultimately saves Van from that? I don't know. I want to believe that. But at the same time, if you take into account the title of the episode and what we talked about last week, which was that Van was the storyteller of the group. And actually, when I think about it even more, okay, this is going to get a little crazy. I thought about this in bed last night. Think about the order of the way the people died in the team timeline. You had Laura Lee first. She represented faith. They had to lose that faith to go where they're going. Then we had Jackie, representative of like the every person. You know, she was like the high school every person. She has to go because she's too of society. And then we had Javi, which represented innocence, right? This young kid. They had to get rid of him. And then we had Coach Ben. We had to get rid of Coach Ben because he's the intelligence. He really is like the last grasp of decency. They had to get rid of him. Well, maybe Akila is the last grasp of decency. But if you then look at the adult timeline and who's gone, we have Travis first, who never apparently did anything really bad so far in the teen timeline, really. He hasn't really been directly responsible for anything, although he almost killed Lottie just now. And then you have Natalie, who definitely got her redemption in season 2. And let's be honest, she's kind of one of the people you definitely root for, even in the team timeline. And then you have Lottie, who, okay, yeah, Lottie has definitely done some crazy stuff, but wouldn't you say, even in her craziness, she's been kind of the most sane in this adult timeline right now, at least. So maybe they now need to get rid of Van, because Van, like Melissa just said, has always had goodness in her. So if we're going to go down this path of this final survivor, we need to get rid of these people that are good, because then all that's left are the bad people that are going to go after each other. Yeah, and I do think that the now tweak of the Melissa character from last episode to this one, Hilary Swank is definitely showing her true colors, that she's got more to her story than what she was saying to Shauna.
Oh, yeah.
I love it because we didn't go over it yet, but the synopsis, the last line of it is, or last lines, it says, Shauna worries about a sticky Melissa problem. The power of the new flesh is strong with this one.
Oh, you think so? Once she chewed her own flesh, that she kind of reinvigorated.
I mean,
her.
Possibly that's the catalyst, or it was already bubbling under. But at any rate, that's the reference from Videodrome, right? Which was like the new flesh was like this kind of descent into madness, or like complete monster behavior. And so that is that. Now, the other part of the synopsis, which we didn't even talk about, was I'll read it to you. It says, taking cues from Stravinsky or Picciotto, if that's your vibe, the Yellowjackets' Rites of Spring finally come to an end. And I think that's in reference to the snow falling and us going into winter. But I definitely did some research on that. By the way, Guy Picciotto is from Fugazi, and he also had a band called the Rites of Spring. We actually watched a little video about the Rites of Spring because I remember it, because when I was in music theory class in the fall of 1996.
Oh, how convenient.
We studied the Rites of Spring, and I did a little, I'm going to save this maybe. I'll save this for our live chat with Sci-Fi Vision. But the interesting thing to take from it is that the Rites of Spring is a story. It's a ballet from 1913 where it had this amazing music that pretty much revolutionized music at the time, orchestral music, and the use of percussion and drums to really, move the storyline. But the ballet is about a group of 12 maidens.
Yeah, that was weird.
And their journey of how they do pagan rituals and games. Basically, there's a moment where 3 elders come, 3 older people, smart elders, and one of the 3 actually goes down, kneels down, and kisses the floor, much like Edwin being axed and hitting the floor. And when that happens, the maidens all get into this crazy dance. And unfortunately, there is a sacrifice of one of those 12 maidens when she falls out of line from the dance, and she basically has maybe a heart attack or something. So I don't know who that's going to be. I have a theory of who it might be, and I'm really worried about that. But I think the really important thing to know about this, I think is fascinating from an Extra Jackets standpoint, is that at the end of last season, there should have been 13 girls. There should have been 13 girls. Jersey number 15, we assume, was the one that was in episode 8 in the card draw that is now missing, because as we get into season 3, we only have 12 angry girls and 1 drunk Travis and Coach Ben. And we also only have 12 maidens. Fascinating, fascinating, fascinating. Okay, now let's talk about... actually, before we get to the next episode,
let's talk about music.
We gotta do the brow meter.
Oh, the brow meter.
For a landing on this episode to get right down to the lowest point. This is our gauge of how highbrow or lowbrow this episode of Yellowjackets was. Douglas, what did you rate this 9th episode of the season 3 of Yellowjackets?
I haven't even had a chance to think about it. Between 1 and 5. I would say this is getting up there. Again, I'm going to give it how about this time can I go 3.85?
Sure.
Okay. I'll do a 3.85.
I would agree. It's definitely higher brow than the last episode. We're definitely getting some more really beautiful moments. I wouldn't say it's quite a 4. So I'll say a 3.8 for me. So you have 3.85. I'm going to say 3.8. The moment for me that really was great was Natalie and the snow and the sobbing, and then Misty coming over. And
I agree with you. I'm total agreement. Yeah. That was my favorite moment. It was the most gut-wrenching but beautifully shot.
And of course, we're very sad to see Lauren Ambrose go. If she's going, we still have hope.
Well, I'm still got hope that she's not going.
Yeah.
Let's hope she's not going.
Let's hope that plane ride is going back up.
There's a possibility we might get some insights into where the series is going, because this is late breaking for us, which came through last night. We have tickets to go see the season finale.
Oh, and I'm super excited.
It's going to be Q&A.
Q&A.
We've got some of the teen actors.
Quite a few, I think.
Teen timeline.
Sophie Thatcher's going to be there. Sophie Nalise. Courtney Eaton's going to be there. Liv again will be there. And Sammy Henrati.
Yeah. So we're excited.
Super excited.
We'll report back.
I have to say, because of this, our next recap for season 3, episode 10, is probably going to be delayed a day. I know this past week it came out on Monday, but I'm thinking this one might not even come out until Tuesday. So please just bear with us and, subscribe now, because you'll get the notification as soon as it comes out. But we'll try to maybe do a little preview or a little touch base from the premiere, right? We'll do some video.
Maybe Brady will pull a few all-nighters too. That would be good, right? All-night editing. Oh, it's terrible.
Well, here's what we have to look forward to. This is the synopsis for next week. The episode is called Full Circle, and if you haven't seen the preview, which we normally don't watch, but we did watch this one, I want to say I do feel much better because it says season finale and not series finale. All right. Synopsis is: things turn frigid as bloody new alliances get built and spilled. It's our time right now down here in the new Queen's Court.
Oh.
Eat up, drink deep, and descend. Now, again, that is filled with little allusions, because again we have the It's Our Time Right Now, which again is the Goonies reference. Then we also have Drink Deep, which is a reference to one of the song titles on the Rite of Spring album. And then, of course, we have the Queen's Court, which we can assume is the Antler Queen. So we got a lot going on. It is going to be amazing. We do know that Simone Kessel will be making an appearance. We cannot wait to see that.
I did see one thing. We don't need to talk about it right now, but definitely there's some spoilers in that promo, too.
Yeah.
So if you want to catch up a little bit and just make some stories.
Screen grabs. Yeah.
I don't know. We can start chatting about it.
But. Yeah. Join us actually on Sunday over at Sci-Fi Vision on YouTube. That's another reminder. We're going to be there live with Jamie and Scarlett. We're going to be talking about this episode and also our thoughts and predictions for the season finale. Join us there on YouTube. That is Sunday, the 6th of April at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And stay hungry, friends. And we will see you then back on the sack. Thank you again for watching. Bye. See you soon.